Hi, guys. Welcome to Mindful Conversations with Elia Bean. I'm your host, and I am so grateful to be here. I'm at the studio today. It's a lovely, lovely day. It was a lovely drive coming here to the studio. And today I wanted to talk about hypnotherapy. I wanted to talk about mindfulness and just anything that has to do with reprogramming your brain in order to have a more positive mindset and in order just to have a better life, live life in a better way, in an easier way. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So, um, a couple of episodes ago, I talked about my story of how I became a therapist and why I became a therapist and how therapy became one of my purpose in this life to be able to heal people and be able to give people that same thing that I was giving when I was going through my own journey of my own healing journey. But today I wanted to just kind of like dig a little more deeper into the different techniques that I use as a therapist. And so I want to talk about hypnosis and why, because there is still a lot of stigma behind hypnosis. There's still a lot of people that, well, you got to be careful. And there's this wrong belief that when you are in the trance, when you're entering that trance of hypnosis, that you are not in control of your thoughts, in control of your body, control of your mind, but it's quite the opposite. The way it works is that our mind has two different brains, right, or two different consciousness. So there is the consciousness and the subconscious. And when we are, as a hypnotherapist, when I hypnotize someone, is I go into the subconscious. Now, there's two parts of our brains. 5% of our brain is consciousness, and then 95% of our brain is subconscious. So imagine if we could go a little deeper and just dig in the things that like why do I act like this? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel this sadness? Why do I feel this anger? And there's a lot, oftentimes we can't really understand and we can't really make up the reason why we feeling the way we feel. And for the most part, it is because it is hidden in the subconscious mind and the subconscious part of our brain. So as a therapist, if somebody had told me 12 years ago that I could sit down on one session and been, hypnotized and then have that regression and go back to the scene, the time and the moment where I gained that belief, that wrong belief about myself, about not loving myself, about not feeling good enough, or that feeling of not knowing, like, why do I feel anxious? Why do I feel scared about the future? Or why do I feel, why can't I sleep? Even dealing with issues with, like, insomnia. So the way it worked is somebody had told me that 12 years ago that I could just get that fix in one session, I would have jumped and say, yes, I will do it. Because for me, for example, and I'm not saying that any other techniques are wrong, absolutely not. I still think that talking therapy is helpful. It is very helpful, but it does take a long time. It took me probably about a year to finally come to the reason of why I was depressed or why I was, dealing with anxiety or why I was going through, the not only the anxiety, but not being able to sleep at night, having insomnia. So the way it work, the way hypnosis work is that we go deep into the subconscious, we extract the problem, we dig a little deeper, we find the reason of why you're dealing with anxiety, depression, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. And then we can actually make sense out of it. We can heal that problem, that issue right there. Why? Because you realize that maybe that happened when you were 5 years old. Maybe that happened when you were 2 years old. Maybe that happened when you were 10 years old. It doesn't really matter when it happened, but you find the reason of why you're feeling that way with the present issue, and then you can make sense of it. When you have the knowledge, when you understand, and understanding is power. So when you have that knowledge of why this happened, you have the power to change the outcome. You have the power to change that belief, to get rid of it, to say, okay, I had enough of that. Thank you for, because everything has a function, everything has a purpose. So, for example, for me, dealing with the fact that I felt so numb, or as my therapist called me, I was emotionally disconnected. In other words, I call it spiritually deaf or numb. And when you hear those words, you would think, oh well, that doesn't sound good, right? And it really isn't. It's not great, but it's actually a self defense mechanism from our brain. Our brain tries to puts away from what is dangerous, from what is unpleasant, and it tries to protect us. So it's actually our brain ways to protect us from that feeling, from that pain. So, in that sense, my brain was protecting me from feeling that pain. Of course, in that sense, it did had a purpose. The purpose was to protect me from that pain. It had a function. The function was to protect me from that pain, to keep me away from that pain. And so once you realize that that actually has a function and it has a purpose, then you can just say, thank you, depression, thank you, anxiety, for what you did during that time, but I don't need you anymore. I can let go now. And it's such an amazing feeling when you are able to let go. It's such an amazing feeling when I'm working with my clients and they can see, it's like almost like they have this aha moment where they can see of why they've been dealing with depression, why they've been dealing with anxiety, or whatever the issue might be. And then now they can let go. Why? Because they're not that person anymore. They're not that kid anymore. They're not 5 years old anymore. Now you are an adult, and because you're an adult, you know better. And because you know better, you can do better. So that's why I absolutely love the power of the mind. The power of the mind, it's probably the most powerful source that you can have in this life. I used to think that, and and I'm guilty of saying that before. I used to say, well, you're not the mind, you're not the body. But now that I think about it, I reframe those words. You're not the ego, but you are the mind. You see how that sounds? It's like you're not the ego, but you are the mind. And the reason why you're the mind, because everything that we control, you control your environment, the environment that you're in, the things that you do, it's all in your mind, right? So if you have a negative thought, that's what your mind is creating. That's what you're creating in your mind. If you have a positive thought, then most likely you're gonna have a positive day. But if you have a negative thought, most likely you're gonna have a negative day. Most likely you're not going to enjoy the work that you do. So you see, it's all about that mindset. It's all about that intuition too. It's a mix of both. But if you constantly keep saying negative words to yourself, and this is what I always say, the most important words that you say that you're going to hear are the words that you say to yourself. Again, the most important words that you're going to hear are the words that you say to yourself. So be mindful about what kind of words you say to yourself. Be mindful, be more conscious about the words, the way you talk to yourself. If you constantly keep saying, degrading yourself and saying negative words instead of praising yourself, well, yeah, you're constantly going to feel like crap, right? If you're constantly saying to yourself, like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Oh, jeez, I can't do this thing right. Well, then, yes, of course. That's what your brain is going to be like, yeah, ding. It's almost like the way our brain works, it's almost like a magic one. It's like if you keep saying, you keep telling your brain that you cannot do something, your brain is going to say, oh, well, there you go. Ding, you cannot do that. So why even try it? But if you're constantly saying more praising, saying more positive words, even saying like, you know what, I don't know how to do it, but I'm willing to try how to do this. It's not that I'm afraid to do it, changing the wording of it rather than saying I'm afraid to do this because I don't know how to do this. Maybe you can change the word by saying I'm familiar with this, but you know what? I'm going to give it a try. It totally changes the perspective and it changes the feeling of how you're going to approach something. You approach it with a more positive mindset rather than, no, I'm not going to try that because I'm going to fail. Instead, you know what? It is unfamiliar, but I'm going to give it a try. It's like when you try a new food, right? You try a new food, you might like it, you might not, but you're not going to know until you actually try it. And you might be surprised, you might actually like it, or whatever it is that you might try it. I took my mom and my dad last year. Actually, it was exactly last year. I took them to the jungle in Veracruz, Mexico. That's where I grew up. And my mom is not so much of an outdoor person, but my dad is. And that's where I love the outdoors. I love, camping and going into the jungle and hiking and doing all those things. And my dad had been very sick. He actually had COVID. And so I thought, well, maybe this is the last time he's going to get to be in the jungle. So I should take him. So I did that. And I was just going to take my dad, but I invited my mom to come too. I said, would you like to come? You're welcome to come too if you want to try it. At first, she wasn't sure, but you know what? She gave herself that chance. She gave herself that opportunity, and she opened up to the unknown. She gave herself that chance to try something new, and she did. We went into this little ecological type of resort, but it's very ecological, so there's no electricity. Everything is run by solar panels. The food, there's only one little place where you can get food, so it's very limited, but it's beautiful, very ecological. Everything is green, everything is organic, and it was a way for not for me to, and for my dad and for my mom too, to just disconnect from the outside world. So again, my mom was like, okay, I'll give it a try. We were there, we were in the cabins, and I have, two different cabins, one for my parents and one for me. And the next morning, my mom actually talked to me and she was like, you know what? Thank you for not pressuring me, but allowing me to make my decision and come. Because coming here, I had a better understanding of why your dad loves this, why your dad loves the outdoors, and I could see it from a different perspective rather than just complaining or not even, or just saying no to it. She was like, I actually liked it. So you see, when you give yourself that chance of trying something new and you go with a more of a positive, having a positive attitude, it changed completely the mindset. It really shift the energy of it. Rather than being a very negative energy, it really changes into a positive energy. And so for my mom, it was such a good experience because not only she got to experience something new, something that was unfamiliar for her, but she got to understand and become closer to my dad because now they have something more in common. Now she understands why he likes that so much. Now she could understand why, the craziness of my dad. And she was like, well, you know what? Now I get it. Now I get your dad's craziness. And now I get your craziness too, because I give it a try. Now I understand why you guys like it so much. And actually, I like it too. She's looking forward to do it again. She's looking forward to try it again, maybe going somewhere else this time. So you see, when you give yourself that chance and that opportunity to open up your heart and open up your mind, you really give yourself that chance to try something new and to really, not only that, but it really elevates your vibration. It elevates your energy. It elevates your consciousness because you become more open rather than being negative and judgmental about something. You actually start letting go of those judgments. You start kind of like shading those judgments. It's like layers, right? You start kind of like peeling off those layers of those beliefs that oftentimes don't even belong to you. Those beliefs that you grew up with, those beliefs that somebody else put in your head, those beliefs that maybe you were put when you were a child in school, the environment that you grew up in. It really is just, it's like our brain, especially as a child, our brain is like a sponge. And we just kind of go around and start absorbing different beliefs. But those beliefs are not really yours to begin with. So the power of the mind, if we could use our mind the way we should use it, we could create so much more. Not only create, but you are the creator and the writer of your own story. And it really works so much just like the law of attraction. You start manifesting things because you start focusing on the things that you want rather than focusing on the things that you don't want. When you put your focus on something that you don't want, really that's what the universe is going to send you. So when you focus on the things that you want, that's where you're going to start seeing the changes. That's what the energy is going to start shifting. And then you're going to start seeing more positive results in your life. And that's why I absolutely love the brain. I love the mind. Because really the mind is one of the most powerful tools you're going to have in this life. And so if you learn how to use your mind and reprogramming your mind, you can make so much more positive changes, not just for you, but for everyone. I always say, the reason why I love offering and giving this more healing to others, it's not just for them, but it's also for me, because if you're doing your work, you're making a better world for me too. And if I'm doing my work, I'm making a better world for you too. So this is like a chain, right? And if if I help somebody else, just like my therapist helped me, and then I became a therapist. I'm not saying everybody should become a therapist, but just putting that little seed in there, making positive changes and giving that to somebody else, and then somebody else gives that to somebody else. It's really just like paying it forward. And then at the end of the day, we can have a better world too. We can have a more positive mindset. We can have more creation. We can have just more positivity. And it might sound like, cheesy, but the reality is that we have so much hate already in this world. So if we can just have a little bit, more of the positive outcome, if we can just have a more positive mindset. I love being here with you guys. And again, if anybody has any questions, you can follow me on Instagram. You can just go ahead and, click on the link, Lux Media, find me, DM me, whatever it is. I am here for you guys, and I'm willing to help anybody that is willing to get help too. Again, I'm Elia. I'm your host of Mindful Conversations, and I love you guys. Thank you, guys.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.